this is a lot of fun.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and this is one of my custom rifles. This is what I call my What Would Stoner Do Commando. Although that is definitely not an official trade name of any sort, this isn't a configuration that's available from Brownells or KE or anybody else. As the title implies, this is my own custom build rifle. So I got curious about how this configuration would handle after working with the KP15, the monolithic polymer lowers, for a number of years by this point. The development and then the actual production and putting them together, and I really like this receiver, and I know how well it handles with like a 14.5 or 16-inch barrel, and I was really curious about how it would work with a much shorter barrel. So kind of during the height of parts scarcity pandemic, I put this together with the help of KE. So not all of the parts are exactly what my ideal preference would be, but the gun turned out really nicely. It's a lot of fun to shoot. I really enjoy it, and I really like the super compact nature of it. Now, there are a couple questions that I know people are going to ask about this. And the first one is about caliber. This is in 5.56. It's a 10.5-inch barrel. People are going to ask, if you're doing it that short, why would you not do 300 Blackout? Don't you know how much better 300 Blackout is from a short barrel, etc.? Yeah. Yes, I do, but it's frankly irrelevant for the purposes of this gun. First off, I wasn't planning on putting a suppressor on this. I could. It is threaded. It might be nice. I might play with a small can on it at some point, but I was much more interested in the handling, the compact and lightweight nature of this carbine, and adding a suppressor onto the end of the muzzle is going to hinder both of those things, and I don't need a silencer on this at all. So there's that. I'm not particularly concerned with the ballistic advantages of 300 Blackout out of a short barrel for this gun, because I'm just shooting this at paper and steel recreationally, shooting at competitions, so it doesn't make a big difference to me. Now the second, and of course convenience. 300 Blackout has, even in the best of times, been more expensive than 5.56, and to be honest with you guys, I don't actually own anything in 300 Blackout. So this was an interesting project for me. It wasn't something that was going to justify adding a new caliber to all of my ammo logistics. Now, the second question that I know is going to come up is, why would you bother making a short barrel with a fixed stock? Why don't you use something other than a KP15 that has a folding or a collapsing stock? Like, you've ruined the whole point. Why even bother? The answer is because there's several elements to this answer. The first is, even if I had a folding or collapsing stock, when I was shooting it, it would be a full length. It would be extended to standard full length, because again, this is for competition, recreational use. I'm not overly concerned about being able to pack this into the tightest possible storage space. And frankly, even if I was, this is pretty much the length of a standard military 5.56 rifle with its stock folded. You look at, the Cold War stuff, FNCs and that sort of thing. You fold the stock up and it's about this length. This is 29.5 inches overall. So it's actually not that long. I really like the KP15s, and I think that the weight and strength balance that they have is ideal for this little carbine. Like, that's the heart of the gun, and so part of the characteristics of the KP15 are that it is a fixed stock. You can't put a folder on it. You can't do a pistol brace on it, which obviously means this is a registered short-barreled rifle. That's how it had to be put together. But I think there are also benefits to a fixed stock that people tend to gloss over when they're really excited about being able to add more moving bits to a gun. A fixed stock is going to be stronger. If I had to start mortar clearing this compared to an M4 carbine stock, the KP15 is substantially stronger because it doesn't have any moving parts. It is, as the name implies, monolithic. The collapsing carbine stocks are all the strength is dependent on whatever latch you have in there to hold it in whatever position. There's a reason that if you mortar clear a collapsing stock, you need to collapse it all the way first so that you don't break it. Not an issue with a fixed stock KP15. It's also more comfortable to shoot. than virtually any of the collapsing stocks, at least it is to me. And it is light. So even if you were looking at something like a law folder, those things are chunky. The folding mechanism in a law folder is a pretty substantial bit of weight. Now that may not be that big of a deal if it's going on to an 8 or a 9 or a 10-pound rifle, but this thing weighs in at 5 pounds 2 ounces with its optic on it. That's 2.3 kilos. It's a really, really lightweight gun. And first off, if I changed it to an aluminum lower, it would be heavier. And then if I also went and added a folding stock mechanism to it, that would add a substantial percentage of its weight on again. And I kind of like it in sort of the purest form here, where it is simple and reliable. No moving bits, just works. So, and of course, as I said at the beginning, when I'm shooting it, the stock would be extended anyway. And what I'm curious about is the shooting handling characteristics. How does it work on the range? So even if I had a folding stock, that doesn't tell me anything that I was interested in the first place. So those, I think, are the two big questions that are going to come up. Let me go ahead and show you what specific parts we put on this, and then we'll take it out to the range a little bit. How about that? It's even so tiny it fits all in frame without me having to move the camera around at all. So basics here are a 10.5-inch barrel, threaded muzzle, and just a plain birdcage flash hider. The KP-15 has an M16A1 length of pull, length of stock. The whole thing is 29.5 inches overall length. As I said, this could be a lot shorter if it were on a receiver that had a folding or collapsing stock, but I like the fact that it came out at 5 pounds 2 ounces with an optic on it. And frankly, I'm going to shoot it with the stock extended anyway. So why not just leave it as a permanent, single-piece, durable, lightweight stock? I'll point out here the KP-15 has a nicely flared magazine well. It is basically intended to take Generation 3 PMags, but it will also take bigger stuff like Surefire quad sacks or Magpul D60s. So I'm calling this my What Would Stoner Do Commando, which obviously it isn't a thing. However, it is built on a What Would Stoner Do 2021 lower, which is to say it's a KP-15 that has completely ambidextrous controls. So I have an ambidextrous magazine release here. I have an ambidextrous safety. It's a 45-degree throw on an SLT2 trigger. There's the other side of the ambidextrous safety. That's actually the ambidextrous side. We have an ambidextrous mag release. This is a PDQ, or I'm sorry, bolt release, which is a PDQ lever, which comes installed, all the milling done on a What Would Stoner Do 2021 receiver. There are two different options for slings back here, a QD plug and also an M-LOK slot, or you can just run a sling straight through both sides of that slot. At the moment, I don't have a sling on it at all because I just haven't put one on. The upper receiver is a standard KE Arms upper. Unfortunately, like I said, we did this during the pandemic, kind of at the height of parts unavailability. And so what was available was a receiver with a standard forward assist. I don't really like having the forward assist there because it kind of interferes with my right hand manipulation of the charging handle, but it's what was available as what we put on. And that is something that I could always change if I wanted to down the road. I do really like having the deflector, of course, because I am left-handed. Other than that, this is just a totally standard upper receiver. The charging handle is a Geissele supercharging handle. And it even says so right there, supercharging handle. I really like these. They don't drag on anything. They're easy to grab. They're easy to use. It's what we used on the very first What Would Stoner Do guns. So I actually pulled that off of an earlier prototype and threw it onto this. The front end of this, we have a carbon fiber handguard from a company called Tacstar, about whom I know nothing at all, except that when I was trying to put this rifle together, this was the only short carbon fiber handguard that I could actually find in stock anywhere. I assume the company is Chinese. This one has done fine for me. I would frankly prefer to have a Faxon one, but when I was putting this together, there were none of those available, and there was no indication that they would become available for some time to come. So I went with what I could get my hands on. It came with this piece of Picatinny rail on top there, which I really have no use for. I'm sure you could put a front sight on there, but I'm not particularly interested in putting iron sights on. I've got a Holosun solar powered circle dot reticle on there, and I like that red dot very much. I think it's perfectly suited to a little carbine like this. Muzzle brake is just a plain bird cage. In that first clip at the beginning of this video, you may have noticed I had a small vertical front grip on here. I decided to replace that with a Slate stop. That's from Slate Black Industries. And what I like about it there, I'm not generally a big fan of vertical front grips. This, because of how short this handguard is, I wanted to have something on here to control hand placement because I don't want my hand to get out in front of the muzzle. I don't think it's that big of a risk on this particular gun, but I prefer having something on there. This is actually really nicely shaped to help control the gun. You can also use it to press up against barricades, that sort of thing. So I think it's also an accessory that fits very nicely on a little shorty carbine like this. And then lastly, if we open this up, I have removed the buffer detent pin because I have a JP silent capture spring system in here. I also really like these things. It does a very nice job of not so much taming recoil, but it just controls a little bit of the snappiness that this rifle would otherwise have. So it still kicks a little more violently than a full-size rifle, but that silent capture spring system is really fantastic. All right, you want to see how it actually handles on the range and on the clock? Let's go take a look. So that was stage number 2 at the Independence Day Action Rifle Match 2021. And I only have that one stage on film because this was actually my backup rifle for that match. My primary rifle ran the first stage and then broke. And my third stage was destroyed by bad magazines. So I just have the one. But I have done a bunch of other shooting with this off camera on my own. And it's really a lot of fun to shoot. It's definitely got a bit of blast. Recoil is a little snappier than on a more of a full-size rifle, but it is by no means unpleasant. It's actually a little bit unpleasant for people around me, although that is mitigated by the fact that it has just a plain birdcage flash hider. I would not put one of those concussion grenade producing muzzle brakes on the end of this because that's just, I think, kind of obnoxious. And this runs very nicely for me with just a plain birdcage. So that's what I've left on it. I consider this experiment a complete success. It's been tremendously fun, totally reliable, and I don't know what more there is to say about it than that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.